Welcome to the Carolina Snowflakes Podcast, where two Southerners come to terms with their liberal snowflake tendencies. We're your hosts. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jason. And we're here with this week's episode of the Carolina Snowflakes Podcast. This week's episode is titled, Russia, Go Fuck Yourself.
Woo!
Woo! Which is an excellent title because it's how I feel on the inside. And it's what Ukrainians are saying on the outside.
That's true. And boy, are they.
Yeah, it's been... this whole thing with a war is like terrible and sad and all that, and we're gonna get into like the tragedy of the war. But if there was a lighter side to the war, if there can be a light side to a war, it's been the fact that the motto of this war has been "Go fuck yourself."
Well, specifically Russia, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's been pretty funny. I have to say, I haven't heard the news use profanity this much since Donald Trump said shithole countries.
And even then, when that happened, a lot of the media wouldn't even say the word shithole.
But now I'm seeing people say go fuck yourself on TV just like...
Constantly.
Like it's acceptable,
yeah.
Which is awesome.
That's great.
And because apparently that is like... I guess it started with that, just to fill everybody in, there was an island, a tiny island called Snake Island off the coast of Ukraine. And there was a Russian warship that was surrounding the island or whatever and coming to them, and they're like, surrender, lay down your weapons. And the Ukrainian soldiers were like, Russian warship, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And the audio got released and everything.
The rest of the world went, can you do that?
Yeah, can you do that? That's awesome.
Yeah, you can apparently. And then it just sort of took off. And so as the Ukrainians are trying to protect their country and fight for their land, they are employing that slogan
as a rallying cry
as often as possible. They've even changed. I saw they've even changed some of their street signs, their signage to actually say like "Russia, go fuck yourself" with an arrow pointing to the left.
Yeah, like this way to go fuck yourself, buddy.
Yeah.
Which I mean, if like I said, if I'm gonna find a sense of humor in any of this, it's definitely that. That's hilarious. And it's been all over the television. And I think it really is something they're all getting behind. There might be some part of Ukrainian culture that I don't understand about. Like maybe it's already a meme to say, go fuck yourself.
Perhaps, or maybe it's already that way in terms of their relationship with Russia.
Yeah, maybe it's just something they've been saying for a while about Russia.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
But either way, even if it's not something that they say all the time about Russia before, it's definitely something they're saying all about Russia now.
Yeah, because we've been watching a lot of news, following what's happening over there, and we've seen a lot of interviews with Ukrainians that have stayed behind to fight. And how many of them have we now seen? Like at this point, you and I are both fluent in Ukrainian, but only when it comes to how to say "go fuck yourself" to Russia.
I've seen at least a baker's dozen of them on TV saying
they're
"go
like,
fuck yourself."
The little newscaster lady's like, "Do you have anything that you would like to tell Putin?"
And they always smile. Yeah. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I got something to say to that guy. Go fuck yourself."
Yeah. And you're just like, wow.
No, yeah.
Wow.
So that's been weird. It's certainly... I would like to like pinpoint at what point in time, because I imagine if anyone was to listen to this episode far in the future, they would need like sort of clarification about like at what point during the war are we recording this?
Well, is it even technically, are they calling it a war at this point?
I mean, it is a war.
I mean, it is, but I don't know if it's officially been labeled as such.
Well, whatever we're going to call it.
Putin calls it just visiting.
Yeah, so whatever it gets called, all I know is right now we're at the point where, Kyiv hasn't been taken, but there's this big ass like 40-mile long convoy that's right outside of it, and they just bombed the shit out of a nuclear plant, and that was scary. That happened a couple of days ago, and so that's like timeline wise where we're at. I don't know where this is going, but I felt like if we wanted to save this episode for posterity, we would need like sort of a timestamp. So that is where we are in the series of events at this particular time, and things have been really crazy. And, our country, Putin has nukes, Russia has nuclear weapons, and NATO countries, if one of us gets in, we're all in, and it's nuclear war and it's scary. So we're trying to avoid that at this point, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I don't know what the hell.
Well, I think that you and I, as well as many others, including really important people, have been kind of taken aback by the Ukrainian resolve.
Yeah, them being badass.
And it's very inspiring. And in many ways, what they're doing right now is so American.
Yeah, it really is.
If the good parts of what makes America America is what Ukraine is doing right now, which is why I think so many people on both sides of the aisles have found something to get behind.
Yeah.
Which is support for them.
For them saying like, nah, we're not letting these people come and take our country.
You're not coming into my house and taking my shit. Fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
That's American as fuck.
It really is.
It really, really is.
It's pretty badass.
And just the cleverness that they have been doing things. Like, it's almost like booby traps.
Yeah.
Like changing street signs.
Mm-hmm.
Not only to put like go fuck yourself, but just like literally switching out names to point Russians in the wrong direction.
And just like changing the numbers.
Trolling almost.
But yeah, it's a it's a kind of an eloquent way to distract like the invaders, because it's going to take them a while to figure out all that shit.
And I've seen video of like literally just farmers like stealing Russian tanks and driving off with them. I saw a video a couple of days ago of a bunch of Ukrainian men who had stolen a Russian tank and were just joyriding it around in some fields.
I wonder if they were like ghost riding it, like playing music and getting out and dancing while it was driving down the field.
Like, they selfie videoed themselves and they were just tickled that they had stolen this tank.
Ghost ride the Russian tank. That's awesome.
But so I think a lot of it is like, I think many of us thought it was going to just happen and Putin was going to end up in Ukraine and it would be done.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what has happened.
No,
they're fighting really hard, and they're fighting. The people that stayed, the men who have stayed are fighting, and then volunteers, thousands. I was reading today, like almost like 20,000 at least volunteers from all over the world have showed up to help fight.
If I knew how to fight, I would go. But I don't.
Their president, Vladimir Zelensky, has asked people to come. He's like, if you can get to the border of Poland and Ukraine, you can come help us fight. And people are doing it.
Oh yeah, like I said, if I had the skills, I would totally do it. But I don't have the the
former
first thing.
Military folks coming out of retirement, reservists that aren't active are going. Like, people are just showing up. Americans even are showing up to help fight.
Well, if they need a podcast host, I'll go.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
I think we could probably we could do that.
This is one of those times in my life where I was like, I kind of wish I had military training and understood all that shit, because then I could go over there and do something. But I don't know the first thing about any of it.
Well, they're getting trained. They have on the border, they have specialists that are actually showing them how to use all the weaponry, and because it's all coming from different countries.
That's so nuts.
So if you want,
I would never.
You could go.
I'm not the type of person that could ever be a fighter, but I could support him. Like I would, if I had medical training or something.
Yeah,
I would do it. I can't. My personality just wouldn't work
as a pacifist.
It wouldn't work as a fighter. But I could support people who are fighters. I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I know one of the ways we're supporting it is that there's all these sanctions. We've decided to shut down Russia economically. That's sort of been the strategy.
Yes, because the rest of the world, the Western world, has said, well, we're going to, be hands off in terms of fighting. But what can we do in the meantime? Well, we can absolutely wreck Russia economically. We can make their dollar, the ruble, go down to nothing, which is what we've done. Literally in like a couple of days. It
went down to nothing. And they're just like not even open in their stock market because they're like, we know what's going to happen.
They've kept it shut now for days.
Yes.
Like they didn't even open the doors. Like, why bother?
That seems to me to compound the problem. Like, that just means when you do open them, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah. So the sanctions have been pretty epic, and they've spanned across both public sector, so like government, and then private sector. So private businesses have even issued their own sort of like personal sanctions against the country, including BP, Shell, and Exxon.
Yep.
All three have announced that they are ending all their joint ventures in Russia, including Exxon, who had a humongous, I think, offshore rig that they were building.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of.
Yeah, I still don't want to like applaud those companies because they're still the devil, but
They are, yeah.
But they're doing the right thing in this particular case.
Yes. Swedish automaker Volvo has suspended all car shipments to Russia indefinitely.
Yeah.
So no Volvos.
No Volvos.
No Volvos.
I'm sure they'll be all right without those.
Credit card companies Visa and MasterCard have blocked Russian financial institutions from their networks.
Yeah.
So, like, you're not going to be able to use your Visa card.
Nope.
Global shipping company Maersk has halted all container shipments to and from Russia. That's huge. That's those big ships that have those gigantic containers on them full of like Walmart stuff.
Yeah.
Paper towels and toilet paper. So supply chain issues.
Oh, yeah.
Russian banks have been barred from the SWIFT international payment system, which is basically halting all international wire transfers to and from Russia. So there's no sending money back and forth to and from the country.
I know.
The EU has banned the sale of aircraft and equipment to Russia.
You just can't even say, which, wow. I mean, imagine your business just has to completely change overnight if you were selling aircraft to Russia.
Yeah, and they've had to.
Wow.
And then others have kind of done it voluntarily. The US, EU, UK, and Canada have all banned Russian flights over their airspace, or through their airspace.
Yeah, no, you can't be flying your planes around us.
Putin's personal foreign-held assets in the EU, US, UK, Switzerland, Japan, and Canada have all been frozen.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that the governments are doing is they're targeting individuals with these sanctions, not just the whole country.
Yeah, with Putin, it's particularly tricky, though, because he does have money in places we don't know about, including crypto. And that is a big can of worms that I don't know how that's going to settle out. The crypto side of this is something that is a question for me. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern that these Russian oligarchs
may have an
Putin
outlet through crypto to keep their money somehow.
Are going to start funneling their money into cryptocurrency as a way to keep it safe.
Yeah, and I don't know how that's eventually going to play out, but I know that right now, since we're targeting them with all this stuff, they should keep an eye on the crypto part of it for sure.
Warner Media announced that they will not release the new Batman movie in Russia. No Batman for you.
No Batman for you. Okay.
No. Netflix announced that they are halting any and all projects and acquisitions from Russia.
Yeah, that's a hit.
They also won't be running any Russian-affiliated media channels on their platform in Russia.
Well, they got rid of a lot of the Russian media outlets. There's only like the one now.
Yeah. Disney has halted all releases in Russia. No Disney.
No Disney movies for you.
YouTube/Google has banned Russian propaganda outlets RT and Sputnik from their platform.
Yeah, and honestly, RT was one of the largest YouTube channels, period. A lot of people didn't know that, but it was up there in like the top, not just news channels or country channels, in the top literal channels in the world was RT, and they're gone now, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah, I didn't realize how big they were until I went reading about
Hundreds of millions of subscribers.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah.
And YouTube took them down. Facebook has restricted accounts belonging to several Russian-backed media outlets and has banned them from advertising.
Yep.
So I'm like, so you could do that all along?
Interesting.
Who knew?
Interesting, Mark Zuckerberg.
Apple has halted all product sales in Russia.
Apple.
No iPhones.
No iPhone for you.
No iPhone for you. Liquor stores and bars across the U.S. and Canada have stopped selling Russian alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, there's alcohol from everywhere else in the world. We don't need yours.
They like literally have pulled it off their shelves.
Yeah,
They've been like,
we don't need it.
Nope.
Jay-Z's got vodka. We're good.
FIFA, the global governing body of soccer, has banned Russia from all competitions, which came after Poland said it would not play Russia in a qualifying semi-match for the World Cup.
Yeah, hell no.
So like no soccer, like
you don't get to get glory in sports during this whole shit. No.
Even in gaming, EA Sports announced that they are removing Russian teams from their video games.
Yep, and they're not the only one.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow. The World Taekwondo Federation took away Putin's 9th Dan black belt and said the Russian flag and anthem will not be allowed at events.
Hell yeah, you don't even get to karatize.
They revoked Putin's black belt.
Yeah, you don't got a black belt anymore. You go back down to white.
Airbnb has suspended all operations in Russia.
Wow.
So
you can't even book an Airbnb. Wow.
The Swedish furniture store IKEA has closed all stores in Russia.
Yeah. Jimmy Fallon said on his show the reason that IKEA did that was to throw a small, useless wrench into their economies.
I don't know. Yes.
Good one, Jimmy Fallon.
That was pretty funny. Hermès, which looks like Hermes,
yeah,
which is a luxury fashion house, they've closed all their stores in Russia and they've halted all commercial operations.
Nice.
Alcoa, the largest aluminum producer in the U.S., has stopped selling all products to Russian companies and halted purchasing of raw materials from Russia.
No more aluminium from Russia.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
No shipping aluminum, no receiving raw materials.
Use that for a lot of shit.
Clothing store H&M has stopped all sales in Russia and closed more than 150 stores in the country. Boeing and Airbus have suspended all parts, maintenance, and technical support for Russian airlines.
Does that mean their planes are going to start just fucking falling out of the sky?
Possibly, yeah.
Huh.
Russia operates a fleet of about 700 Western aircrafts.
They're just going to start being like, meh.
Yeah. And without the support of Boeing and Airbus, the country's airline industry is extremely isolated.
Oh, man.
So
if you're Russian, don't fly on a plane anywhere anytime soon.
You can't call for help, tech support. Like, what does this red light here on the panel mean?
Like as the plane's going down.
Yeah, what does this mean?
We're not going to tell you.
Can't tell you. Sorry about that. So that's, and that's not even all. That's just some.
I know, it's incredible.
Of the many, like, public and private sector sanctions that have been lodged.
It's kind of scary, though, when it makes you realize how quickly they can cut off everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on the receiving end of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I can't help but in a lot of the same, like, I'm glad that they're punishing Putin and the other oligarchs who have all the money. But the average person in Russia who has no say in any of this is getting absolutely fucked by this.
Correct. And in my reading on all of the sanctions, that is part of the goal.
I know, but it's sad. I feel bad for them.
It is, but it's almost like it's one of those things where they think that if they can get through to the Russian people, maybe they'll revolt. Maybe they'll overthrow their government. Maybe they'll stage such a protest that Putin will back off.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or it will cause so much unrest within Russia that it's distracting for this invasion of Ukraine goal.
So this whole thing, I want to make a disclaimer here in the episode because we titled it like Russia go fuck yourself. But really it's like the Russian government and Putin and the oligarchs go fuck yourselves. Obviously there are people in Russia who are probably pretty freaking awesome. Just like there are probably people in North Korea that kick ass and that I would be awesomely down with. But I'll never know that because their leader sucks so hard that he ruins it for everyone. And so I think that has gotten mixed up a little bit in like times recently. So, you have Phil Mickelson. He came out and said a bunch of shit about Saudi Arabia.
The golfer?
Yeah, the golfer Phil Mickelson. They were talking about possibly having a Saudi Arabian tour of the PGA. And he was like, that's bullshit. That guy, he fucking killed Khashoggi. Like, that shit was bad. He mentioned Khashoggi. And people got all on his case saying that he was racist.
Well, he didn't say that guy. He said, he was like, those people, or like they. He was
they're fucked over there.
They killed journalists.
Yeah, they're fucked over there. They killed journalists.
Yeah.
And to a reasonable person, it's obvious that he doesn't mean Saudi Arabians do that. He means Mohammed bin Salman, and the leader, the prince of Saudi Arabia, does that horrible shit.
Yes.
Their government does that horrible shit. Obviously not the people. And I thought we were all adult enough to understand that, but it seems to be getting mixed up in these times. So I wanted to put a disclaimer out there to say, like, I got nothing against, I actually love a lot of Russian people. Russian literature is a lot of some of my favorite literature. I've read all of Dostoevsky's books. I'm a huge fan. But what their government is doing and what Russia's doing right now is completely fucked, and they deserve what they're getting. And I don't know. I felt important to point that out because it seems like people get confused about that. And that's weird.
Right. Yes. There have been people who've said, like, don't go out and attack your local Russian restaurant owners.
Yeah, well, obviously.
Be assholes to your Russian neighbors because of this. Like,
yeah, no shit.
It's not them.
Yeah, I would think it doesn't take a rocket surgeon to realize that it's not them.
Right, and to me, it's just common sense. But I guess in some instances, you do have to put like a disclaimer.
I do. I think in these times we're living in now, it's important to say it because people obviously don't get it.
Yeah, and if anything, with the sanctions plus the punitive treatment coming from their own government, the Russian people are going to be suffering as well.
Yeah, and they're pissed. They're protesting in massive freaking numbers.
Yeah, they are.
And so, like, that's proof right there that they are not on the same page with this crazy maniac who's running around bombing the shit out of other countries.
And sitting at long tables.
Sitting at ridiculously long tables yelling at people.
20 feet from his henchmen.
Oh my God. Those tables, those pictures of him at those giant tables.
So
like,
what a weirdo.
What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's always a different table. I've seen like 4 different ones. I'm like, how many giant tables does this fucking guy have?
Asshole have?
He's just got a giant table for every day of the week?
Yeah.
It's amazing, but also infuriating. So I don't know about you, but I've had some questions about since the start of the war in Ukraine and all the shit that's going on. I've had some questions about Ukraine, some of which I've gotten answered and some of which I have not. And I thought maybe we should do a little section of like, here's some of the things we've learned, and then here are some of the things we have yet to learn, but I want to know. So this will be the questions portion of the of the show.
Q&A.
One of the things I've learned from the beginning of this is that I'd heard it pronounced, the city pronounced Kyiv before. I heard that's how Ukrainians pronounced it, but I didn't know if that was just local or what. And then I've also, before I'd always heard it pronounced as Kiev. And I learned the truth is that in Russian it's pronounced Kiev, in Ukrainian it's pronounced Kyiv. And the reason most people on the news and stuff are saying Kyiv now is for solidarity for the Ukrainians. And I've thought that was really interesting because in my life it had always been pronounced Kiev. And it wasn't until this last few months or weeks that I've heard it pronounced Kyiv.
Yeah, and it was pronounced that way by the media. Mm-hmm. So anytime, what's-her-face from ABC, what's the lady's name that's always in foreign countries? She's the foreign reporter. You know, older lady. It'll come to me. Anyway, she would always say, like, I'm hearing Kiev.
Yeah, Kiev.
And then all of a sudden it's Kyiv, and we were like, how are they saying it differently?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was very curious about it, and that is a question that I did learn the answer to.
Martha Raddatz.
Martha Raddatz, there you go. Oh, okay, I know who you're talking about now. Yeah. I was like, I don't know.
I couldn't think of her name.
Like you you were looking at me like you were picturing her face, and I was supposed to see it too, and I was like, blank.
You know, I'm sitting here pointing at you.
I don't see.
You know who I'm talking about? The lady with the
Barbara
dark hair.
Walters? I don't know.
Martha.
That was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Well, have you had any questions that you've had answered? Like,
yeah, and this just shows that I'm painfully American. I didn't really know what all countries bordered Ukraine, to be perfectly honest.
I had no idea.
I mean, obviously, I did know Russia.
Yeah.
But, like, I didn't really know the rest.
No, I had
no idea. And that's embarrassing to admit.
Well, they have, like, 9 countries around. I mean, you kind of can be forgiven. Now that I know, you can kind of be forgiven because there's a lot.
It's embarrassing to admit, but I'll admit it. Like,
I'm
a product of American public schools.
Yeah.
And I know we learned that stuff at some point. I want to say, like, 6th grade, but
If I'm being completely honest, if you would have told me to find Ukraine on a map before now, I'd have got you to the general area, but I wouldn't have necessarily been able to say it's this one.
To be fair, though, you and I are both old enough to where that section of Europe has changed a couple of times, even since we were in 6th grade.
It has a little bit, yeah.
The names of places are different.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that now I can say there are like 9 countries that are on the border of Ukraine, so you can be forgiven for not remembering all of them. There's a shitload. Also,
I didn't know that was where the Black Sea was.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you know.
I know it all now.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've learned a lot.
I have, yeah.
I've been wondering about the question of the cyber war. Like, I've known that Russia has ridiculous cyber capabilities, and they probably still do. And I've been wondering for the longest time why they haven't been unleashing them. And I have a partial answer to that question. And the partial answer is because hundreds of thousands of hackers have gotten together to basically stop them from being able to do anything. Mm-hmm. And they've been being attacked more than they're able to unleash attacks. So we can thank Anonymous for that. Love you guys. Appreciate that one. Mm-hmm. Stay on them, because apparently the cyber part of it, they can't get their shit together because, well, people have volunteered from all over the world to fuck them up, which is pretty great. But I still think they have stuff they haven't used yet. That's in my mind for sure. And it's kind of scary. I think maybe part of the reason might be that the Russians want to have as much of the infrastructure left to use for themselves once they assume Ukraine's going to surrender, and they hope to have as much infrastructure left there for them to use as possible. That's my only thing I can figure, is they don't want to destroy everything with cyber.
Well, what I read also said that they're currently utilizing the same mechanisms of communication that are available in the Ukraine.
Yeah, they're using like the same towers.
So if they were to like shut down internet, they would be just as screwed as the Ukrainians.
I assume that's the reason.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I read.
Because I know that I was certainly under the impression from history that Russia has some pretty strong cyber capabilities to fuck shit up. I mean, they've shut down power plants in Ukraine before.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't roll in with their own methods of communication.
Yeah, it's weird.
That they didn't need, like, that they could use independent from the Ukrainian system.
That's so weird to me.
It's a little like, did you guys even plan this?
I don't know. That's one of the things I've been...
At your giant table?
Yeah, that's Putin? One of the things that's been kind of plaguing my mind about this is it's like, if that's true, then why did they leave it set up so that they couldn't use their cyber, which we know is one of their strongest weapons?
Unless Putin just thought that he would roll in and the Ukrainians would roll over.
I guess that's kind of been the answer to a lot of questions that people have had of like I guess Putin just miscalculated this whole thing, which I guess is true. But if that's true, why did we all think he was smarter than that?
Yeah, we've been giving him a lot of credit for a really long time.
Yeah, so has something changed? Or was our understanding of him before a misunderstanding? Or what? It's still not clear on that to me at all.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because I had a certain impression of him, and that would have been that he wasn't that stupid, like that he wouldn't do something that was just like completely misjudged of the situation. I didn't think he was that type of person, but I guess maybe he is. I don't really know. It's kind of unclear if our judgment was wrong or he changed. I'm still not sure about that. And I guess that's kind of one of the questions of the whole thing that's unanswered so far, because it seems odd to me that he would misjudge a military situation so badly. Another question I've had has been about the airspace. Like, so I don't know how many planes each side has, but it seems like Ukraine has planes still, and they're still able to bomb the shit out of Russian things from the sky sometimes, which is nuts to me because I would have thought Russia had a bajillion more planes than Ukraine did, but apparently they're not able to control the air like I thought they were going to either, which is another one. I don't understand how that exactly happened.
Yeah, unless he miscalculated and thought he didn't need air coverage.
Which doesn't seem right at all.
I really do kind of wonder if he just didn't think that showing up in the mass numbers that he did, that would be enough to intimidate.
Like I said, which if that's true, then how did we misjudge him so badly?
Yeah, I don't know. And how did he misjudge so badly?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, like, that might be the case, but how did that happen?
Yeah.
That's the part I'm still kind of stuck on as like a question from this whole thing that I hope I'll have an answer to at some point. Like, maybe he's got like brain fever and he's like getting delusional or something.
Yeah, maybe he's got like some kind of
the vapors,
dementia, or maybe he's got COVID brain.
Yeah, or something like that, or like maybe he had like a near-death experience, or like,
yeah,
you know what I mean, like something.
So at this point, over 1 million Ukrainians have fled the country.
I know, that's crazy to think about. Like the same amount of people that died from coronavirus in America in the last 2 years. That amount of people left Ukraine in like 5 days.
Yeah. They bailed. They ran. sometimes on foot even because the roads were so backed up.
Yeah, Sean Penn had to run away on foot.
Oh, that's right. Sean Penn was in Ukraine with a crew doing a documentary on what was happening, and it just got a little too real. And he and the crew left, and they wound up having to walk to the border to get out.
Yeah, that's something.
So over a million at this point, many of whom have wound up in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they've been bussed to like Warsaw, Krakow. Some have even been bussed to other countries.
Yeah, Germany has been taking some.
Germany's been taking some, and Austria, and even Denmark.
Yeah. I heard there was, like in Germany, they have more families with signs saying they'll take people in than they have refugees at this point. Like the problem is getting them from Poland to Germany. It's taken long. But the German families are stepping up because they're like, we know what this shit's like.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same in Poland.
Yeah.
I was reading a little bit about the refugee situation that's happening right now in Poland, and there's a lot of good to be said.
Oh, yeah.
About what Poland is doing in terms of opening their border and offering to help. In particular, they aren't requiring the kinds of things that you would typically see at a border, which would be like, papers. Mm-hmm. Show me your papers.
Yeah.
For humans or even for animals. So people have been traveling with their pets.
Yeah.
And they're just letting anybody in who is coming from the Ukraine with no questions asked, which is great.
It is.
But it's probably going to backfire sooner rather than later. And I didn't realize that until I did some reading today about the situation, because Poland, who's really helping right now are the Polish people, the citizens, like average, ordinary Polish citizens are the ones who are volunteering and who are the ones that are putting refugees in their own homes. They're opening up their homes voluntarily and saying, I don't know you, but you can come stay at my house with me and I'll help you, get through this. The Polish government is involved, but it's a little less so.
Yeah.
It's actually the Polish people, which is super interesting. And there's some speculation, or at least a little bit of relation, to the Polish position in the EU currently and why they may be opening their borders the way that they are. Because what's interesting is that the current Polish government actually was founded on the sort of nationalist rhetoric of closed borders.
Yes.
They kind of are Trumpy in a way. It's so much so that they actually built a wall between their border and what is that? Belarus?
Belarus, yeah.
Yeah, to keep Belarusians out.
Belarusians, yeah.
Yeah. So they're kind of doing the opposite right now and letting in Ukrainian refugees, and it's more from the volunteers than it is from the government.
I have at least a partial explanation for this phenomenon and why this is happening like it is in Poland. As a person, I said earlier in episodes that I read a lot of Dostoevsky as a person. I'm a fan of his writing. He was a Russian author, and he was writing in the 1800s. And I can say from his books, he makes it abundantly clear that Polish people hate Russians, like a lot.
Yeah.
They're like, in his books, it is a primary thing and it happens a lot. Polish people and Russian people do not get along with each other. There's a lot of anxiety and anger between those two people. And I think I would compare it to, like, you could imagine, there's a lot of history with China and Japan, and Chinese people and Japanese people, if you call one the other, they get upset about it because there's a long, thousands-year long history of them fighting. And I would say, from my knowledge, that the history of Polish relationships with Russia goes back further than the World Wars. It's an old fight that didn't just start from World War I and World War II. It goes back even before then. And I think that might be playing a factor into all this. It's that there's a very old, bitter sort of dislike between those two groups of people.
Amongst the Polish people, absolutely.
Yeah.
From the government's point of view, though, in the EU, so I learned a little bit about this today as well, there are requirements that countries have to maintain in order to stay in good standing in the EU. And Poland is in the EU,
Mm-hmm.
but they haven't recently been in the best of standings.
Right.
Because they've been backsliding on their democracy.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually inching towards an autocracy.
Right.
And
There's a strong right-wing
yes.
element there. Yeah.
As a result, they have been sanctioned, actually,
Uh-huh.
by the EU, which means that there's a lot of money currently sitting in holding that the EU is denying to Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some speculation that part of the reason Poland has been so cool, seemingly, to let the Ukrainians come into the border is to try to undo some of that
badness
badness that has been happening
Yeah.
in terms of the EU. And that maybe the EU will be like, wow, Poland is really cool here. Let's undo some of these sanctions and free some of this money that they're owed.
So it does seem like this war is more than just like the battle in Ukraine and more of a like democracy versus totalitarian autocracy.
Yeah, it's politics.
And like that's kind of happening on sort of a global scale already, which is why I think some people are already calling it a world war. I think that's just technical, and I don't know the answer to whether or not you call it that or not. But it certainly has world implications, and the global politics are definitely at play here.
I think as an American, one of the things that's been happening for me is just wondering, like, how do I help?
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing all of this news coverage and these horrible videos and images coming from Ukraine, and I'm just like, I feel so bad. But I'm also like a million miles away, it feels like, and I don't know what I can do. But so I did a little reading on that, and there are organizations out there that you can donate to. UNICEF is one, and then there's a few others that have, I think one's Global Giving for Ukraine.
Yeah.
You can donate money. I've also heard that Americans are booking stays through Airbnb in Ukraine.
Uh-huh.
And instead of, going, they're canceling and then letting the property owner keep the funds. Now, I don't know like how, safe that really is.
I don't know. That seems like a strange strategy.
Could be. But I have heard that that's happening.
Yeah.
And then just sharing what you know, I guess, and trying to stay abreast of what's happening.
I think it's really important. I think that this is very important. And it's not, I'm actually torn partially on this because part of me says like, well, it's white people and that's why it's such a big deal, at least like on the news. And there is certainly a piece of that. A piece of this is that these are white people, and so that makes an impact. But also, there are nuclear power plants that got attacked, and that's never happened in the history of the world before.
Right.
And there's also the fact that, as we said earlier, Ukraine borders on 9 countries, and some of them are NATO countries. And the second a NATO country gets involved, now it is a world war.
Right, because we have rules.
Yeah.
We have rules and bylaws that say that if one NATO gets involved, all NATO gets involved.
So there's this part of me that's like, yeah, I mean, like, it's fucked up what's happened to the Ukrainians, but it's also fucked up what's happened to the Uyghurs in China, and it's fucked up what's happening to people in Hong Kong, and it's fucked up what's happening in Taiwan. And although I know those things are true, or Sudan or Somalia, or there's places in the, quote, shithole countries where this type of stuff happens, and it's horrible, and it makes me feel bad. And so I wonder, like, oh, is it just because these are white people that we care so much? And I guess part of that is true, but I think another part of it is that this is a whole other can of worms. And I have been personally struggling with how to pull that apart, because I'm not sure how much of it is what. It's just like Gabby Petito when she went missing, and it was this pretty young white girl, and that's why it was all in the news, and there were other people that were missing, and there was some criticism there, and I wonder, I haven't really heard much talk about that, but I know some of that is at play here.
It absolutely is at play.
Yeah.
I mean, we can sit here and try to rationalize it and excuse it all we want to, but the truth of the matter is, like,
some part of it is
part of
because
the
they're
reason
white
that
people.
so many of us have felt moved by this is, A, like I mentioned earlier, that it's about as American as fuck as it gets, what the Ukrainians are doing, but also that when we see these images, these videos and photos from the Ukraine, it looks just like here.
Yeah.
It looks like the city block.
Exactly.
You know, and the people look like us.
Yeah, and it's a lot different than when you see shit going down in Somalia.
Yeah, with huts and,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
dwellings.
and it's hard to for me as an individual to know how much of that affects all of this. And I don't have an answer for you, and I'm sure if you're wondering the same thing, I just want you to know you're not alone.
It's pretty near impossible, I think, to like quantify and measure how much of this is a racial bias and how much of it is actually because of
their new thing,
the threat
that is new.
Yeah, the new threats in terms of like nuclear capabilities.
I don't know the answer. I can't tell. It's really hard to tell, and I don't know if anybody could tell.
But it's good to at least acknowledge.
I think so. I mean, I want to acknowledge it because I'm pretty sure other people have got to be thinking the same thing.
Surely, yes.
Yeah, so if you're out there and you're thinking the same thing, you're not alone. And if you are out there and you're feeling the same thing and you want to feel other things with us, you could totally do that by listening to episodes of our podcast on our website,
carolinasnowflakes.com.
And you could meet up with other people that have other feelings on our Facebook,
facebook.com/Carolina Snowflakes.
And if there's anything I missed or anything that you think we should cover or that we didn't see about what's going on here, I would love to hear from you in an email.
carolinasnowflakes@gmail.com.
gmail.com.
Thanks for listening. Bye.